Welcome back to another lovely episode of the Words from the Nerds podcast, where we bring you all of our wonderful nerdy opinions, discussions, and anything else we want to talk about, I guess. I don't know, yada. But of course, I am joined today by my two lovely co-hosts. They all wanted to show up today, so that's nice. Isn't
That's
that
crazy.
great? Isn't that cool? Benjamin and Aiden. Who should I start with today?
Drum roll, please.
I think Ben still needs to get into the role of things, so we'll start with Aiden. How was
What am I rusty? It's been a bit, huh?
Hey, hey man, you're a little tired boy today.
That's true. That's true.
Buddy's had a busy day.
Chat it up.
I am doing really good. I'm doing good. This was a great week. We talked about the whole Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Wednesday. Or let me try and come up with Your Friendly Neighborhood Invincible of it all. This week it has become Daredevil, Invincible, Severance, and so that's a great week. That's a great week in my book. It was the first week that we're able to do this. Next week will be the last. And then we get into the next phase of the year in terms of stuff to talk about. So it was great. It was a great week. Light on the work side, easy schedule this week. So I can't complain, man. I was able to get a lot done. If you want to see my Daredevil episode reactions on YouTube, Aiden H Talks. If you want to see my Invincible and Daredevil reactions on TikTok, it'll be Aiden D Reacts. Shameless plug right there. Hey, but I shout out the podcast on those. I feel like it's only right to shout out the personal stuff on here. So yeah, I can't complain. Great week, ready to get into these three amazing shows, and glad to be here to discuss it with y'all. Oh, and also, are we going to do a list update after the intro?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, then I'll save that for then.
Of course.
Golly, now that half of our allotted time for the podcast is taken up, Benjamin, how are you
this
doing
guy
this past week, buddy?
This might be one of the busiest, biggest, and best weeks that I've had in a long time.
Whoa, way to brag.
It's been a lot, which is part of why I'm a little bit exhausted coming into this. But some big life updates with my job, and then I know I missed out on Sunday, but that was some exciting other stuff as well about houses and whatnot. So just big life things. And then also somehow within that, I managed to watch 2 new releases and, this week's episode of Invincible, which has been hyped up a lot, and the start of Daredevil. So I feel like all around, it's just been everything that's been happening is just so big, so exciting. It's just in a phase where everything just hit right. The only unfortunate thing is that it's hitting all at once. So that's why I'm a little just exhausted, ready for this weekend to kind of take a break and relax a bit. But other than that, I'm doing very well. Very, very well.
Hey, there we go. Okay. All right. Crazy week for Benjamin. We get it, man. We get it, pal. I want to get into a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, like we always say, every week you can leave us a comment on a YouTube video of ours, or you can leave us some fan mail in any of our podcast listening places, I guess you could say, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, et cetera. But this week we actually do not have a comment. Not a one on the YouTube, and not a fan mail in the podcast, right, Aiden? No fan mail, I don't think. Okay.
I don't believe so.
And thanks for asking how I was doing, guys. Fucking assholes. Just kidding.
Hey, buddy,
I've been
let's
fine.
be real. Let's be real. The fans don't flock here to hear how your day's been. All right,
But with all of that being said, actually, I don't
happy
know if I
birthday!
wanted.
Happy birthday! Happy birthday to the one and only, the man, the woman that Lord knows how she puts up with him. Charlie's wonderful girlfriend, by the way.
Yes, yesterday was my girlfriend's birthday. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. I'm sure we'll have a comment next week probably from her saying thank you to that. But I actually don't know if I want to get into the list off the bat. I mean, I'll bounce the idea off of you guys. I guess maybe it doesn't matter that much. I was just thinking like we'll go into giving our thoughts on, because like the main thing that we're going to talk about is Daredevil in terms of the list. But we will touch on Mickey 17, of course, as well, because the audience scores are starting to go up for that.
Tomorrow, right?
Yeah. But do you guys want to hold off until afterwards, or do you want to talk about it early? Get it out of the way.
I said we go ahead and hit it right now. I mean, we don't have to dive too deep into I mean, we could just give like a little update. I was even thinking, Charlie, if you still had the original file, you can kind of put like, we can do like a weekly update on it to where you could put the score next to our name and then we can change it based on week to week. And so that was the only reason. And also, I mean, of course, my movie has been the one, or my pick has been the one to do the most changing in the past 2 weeks. So we can go ahead and touch on that. Just give an update to where we're at right now, and then we can touch on it a little bit more later with the Daredevil stuff. If that sounds fine.
Yeah, man, whatever you say. Good call. Aiden runs
I
the show
like
around here.
I like keeping it updated just as time goes on. Real-time counter for each of the projects, and then our totals. I think, at least for me, since things are going to change a lot, like Mickey 17 is coming out this weekend.
Yeah.
The audience score, that's bound to change. And even Daredevil, day by day, it's fluctuating a little bit. So I feel like there's not like a ton to discuss other than, just talking in general about how a project is doing, or if a score or a range is super shocking. But even like with Mickey 17 with the critic score, I think it's gone up and down a bunch.
Dude,
But
yeah.
your point amount hasn't changed because it's still just like in the 80s.
Well, like, but that's the well. Let me pull up the score just to check, because I think it debuted so low, either 77 or 74. It debuted very low, and then at that point I would have been at 1 point for the critic score, and then it went all the way up to 90, which would have put me at 3 points, and then has just went all the way back down to 81. So it's now teetering back to being at 1 point. And I say 81 because it says 82 there, but then on the side it says 81, at least for me. So that's like a whole 1 to 3 points that I've just jumped around on in just the past 2 weeks. And it even got up to as high as I think 80, almost about 90%. So it's just like, I don't know. It also has the most reviews out of I mean, we can't see Daredevils, but like Invincible has 500 audience reviews, but 21 critic reviews. So it's like critic reviews so far, it has the most out of everyone's. And so I don't know. It's just been one of those ones that's been fluctuating. I know we talked about like, before the audience score, or maybe we talked about before any of the scores come out for it, we can drop it. So I think it's a point of conversation, because I might have had my thoughts throughout the week on if I should just make a shocking move and drop it right before the audience score comes out, just in case it is in the 60s or 70s and fucks my entire list. So I don't know. I thought it was a good point of conversation, because Daredevil also, I mean, we're both in the 90s for a while, and then both dropped severely and now have made their way back up a bit. So
Yeah, they're both
I
like
don't
mid
know.
to high 80s.
Yeah, 85 and 87.
Yeah. Which like in reality, I think, and this is not cope. I promise you guys this is not cope for anything with my picks or my list. I stand by that. Like the list that I went with was not just like the list that I thought would have the highest scores. I genuinely picked like these are the 5 that I am also like the most excited for in the year. And looking back, like it was probably stupid to pick an MCU project if I was going based on the scores, because the chance that an MCU project is in the high 90s compared to some of the other things like Invincible or The Last of Us or whatnot, probably slim. Now I went with Born Again because of the shows, it's the one that I was the most excited for. So
Yeah.
like I'm not upset at the pick at all, especially like we're gonna talk about it today. I am very happy with how the show is so far. Just a little preview. I'm very happy. And so I stand by the pick, even if, the average scores aren't going to be hitting in the high 90s like Mr. Charles.
Hey, listen, this is just off rip though, for me, because I don't know that we've brought attention to it on the podcast in the past. I think off the podcast, Aiden and I talked about it, but like looking at the Last of Us season 1 Rotten Tomato scores, I mean, definitely nothing to super scoff at, but not nearly as good as the Invincible season 3 100% tomato meter 92 audience score.
Crazy. Yeah.
So I don't know that The Last of Us
mean-
will give me as many points as this, but
I mean, that Last of Us that you just had pulled up would only be 5 points compared to the 4 points that I currently have for Daredevil.
yeah.
So it's not that much more.
Speaking of points, for visual listeners, I do want to show you the points layout so far on the actual list. For audio listeners, we will voice it out as well again. For me, Charlie, I have 9 points as of right now, currently in the lead. And in second place, we have Benjamin with 4 points on the old Rotten Tomatoes scoring system that we made up. And in last place, as of right now, who knows what his audience score will be starting tomorrow and how high it might go, is Aiden with 2 points.
I can I drop Mickey 17 right now?
No.
Why not?
can't-
The
you can't
audience
drop it.
score isn't out.
You
Well,
can't drop it once that would be
Technically, it's released today is my problem with it.
my bigger problem is
People are
technically then you could say critics always see something early. And if something drops with like a 40%, just
I
because the
thought-
audience hasn't had the
but I
chance to
thought-
see it, you can't just drop it because it's a bad number already.
I thought we said last week, like, if we could drop, because I think I might have even said something about Mickey 17 and like dropping it before like the total tomato meter is out there for both critics
No.
and audience score.
I
I'd
think you
have to
can
go
drop
back
it
and watch
based
what we talked
on
about.
I think you can drop it based on like early reactions and reviews where like, people will tweet out like their brief thoughts on a movie before an embargo releases. So if you're
Well-
getting a general vibe that like, oh, something is rough, you can make that choice. I think as soon as
That's-
there's like concrete scores, I don't think you can.
But we brought it up because of the Daredevil stuff, because the Daredevil embargo had lifted for like certain people, because we were talking about like the early reviews, and then we were talking about how, oh, you could drop it because the audience score isn't out yet and stuff like that. And so that's why I had in my mind all week, oh, Mickey 17, like I'll keep an eye on this, and then if I drop it before the audience score comes out and just take a risk on something else.
I don't
Then I might
think
do
when
that.
we
I
talked
think
about it last week there
I
were
think
any
last week
scores.
Yeah, I think last week for Daredevil it was just the reactions. Because the tomato
That might
score
be
just
true, that
went
might
up
be
for
true.
Daredevil a couple days ago.
Yeah.
So I think and that would fall under the early reaction thing.
I say that because I think I might want to drop something off my list and replace it with something else.
I mean, I
right
think you can
now,
drop anything
other
else.
than
I don't
Mickey?
think you can drop Mickey
Yeah.
17.
Well,
Okay,
I
keep
mean,
it. Hold on
in a,
before, but sorry to interrupt, but like before, like you have one drop. So if you've
yeah,
thought about this,
I
and
have.
if you're like dead
I
set on it, you're stuck the
I
rest of the year.
yeah, I have the thing is, I mean, 1,000%. If I could drop Mickey 17 right now and put this other movie in there, I 1,000% would. Like in a perfect world, that would be my 100%. If I can't do that, then I'd have to look at I'd have to look at my list and see, and it'd probably be like the Bear season 4. But I really do want to add this other movie on here because I think it could be a fucking smash. And I really want to throw it on my list.
What are we dropping and what are we trying to put on? Do tell us, Aiden. The suspension is killing us, but like I said, once you speak it into
I just want to
you
shake.
have to say lock it in. I will give you that.
Yeah.
You have to say I
I
lock
just
it in.
I just
But
want
then you're
to
stuck.
I want to shake things up, and I have a lot of faith in this movie. This man is on a tear. He's coming back for vengeance.
I bet he's dropping there.
I want to drop Mickey 17 so fucking bad. You have no idea, because I want to keep everything else on there. And like, I mean, look, I think before both scores come out, I think that's, I don't know. I think that's fair, but of
Because
course, Ben
critics
wants
always-
to cope. Ben wants to cope and wants to keep his,
Aiden.
critics. Daredevil's not doing great, so he wants to drag me down with him.
Always come out before audience.
Exactly. So then not everybody has seen the project.
You're basically saying that if any of our projects drop with a bad critic score, we can just drop it immediately after the score's out. I don't think that's right.
Exactly, but you get one of those. That's the whole thing. You get one, and at this point, I'm like, all right, Mickey 17's at an 81. I gotta wait for the audience score. I can just sit back and let it be, and because I trust that it'll be in the high 90s. Or what if it's in the 70s? Boom, I drop it whenever it gets solidified. I mean, I think that's fair.
The only other time you would get another drop, I think, is if a project gets pushed out of this year.
Yeah,
naturally you have to have 5. But
yeah,
that doesn't have to do with anything you guys are saying. But I was just thinking about it.
See, I trust everything like Avatar, Fantastic Four, Stranger Things. The Bear is the only one because, like Charlie, we talked about it on Sunday. I mean, they were like just starting to film. They dropped a little, like 2 clips, and it's, I don't know. So there's a lot of signs that point to this being another, like, kind of filler season, maybe. But you know what? I lock it in. I'll
be honest, Aiden.
And I'm what?
I think if you're gonna drop anything, I think you should drop Avatar. I'm not gonna lie.
Damn,
really?
Let's okay. With
look
Benjamin
at the precedent.
That,
like I don't think that this movie is gonna be like
scores.
a mid to high 90s type of film.
You well, Avatar, it did get a 76 with the. Okay, go for it.
Sorry, Avatar 1 with an 81% tomato meter, and then an 82% popcorn meter.
Mm-hmm.
And let's look at Avatar: Way of Water.
Yeah, that one is a vast difference.
That one is looking at a 76% tomato meter and a 92% popcorn meter.
Yeah,
that 92 is nothing to scoff at, though.
I just think in general that these movies are never going to see high 90s from critics. I feel like there's some sort of almost like stigmatism against them slightly. I mean, we've all seen the Avatar hate when Way of Water was coming out. People really talk down to these movies. So I just think based on track record, not that it's going to do bad. I'm sure it's going to be in the 80s probably, but I don't think it's going to be a crazy hit. It might be like basically what Mickey 17 is about to get.
Yeah, fair point. The bear scares me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
The bear.
That's the only reason why I would consider.
With season 1 of The Bear, we are looking at 100% tomato meter, 92% popcorn meter.
Yeah. I couldn't find out how to get to season 2.
Season 2 is looking at a 99% tomato meter and a 92% popcorn meter. And then season 3, which I would say is the worst season. Yep.
Rough. Yeah.
Wow.
Season 3 was
looking
rough.
at an 89% tomato meter and a 51% popcorn meter. Yep. Audience did not like that season. And I am one of those people.
Yeah. But you know what? Season 4 could change some stuff around. It just scares me with like how busy literally all 3 of our main characters have been and will be. And they're just now, just now filming. It's like, but you know what?
Look at what you're maybe saying goodbye.
I have a decision. I have a decision to make, and I think I've made it.
Oh shit. Everybody get excited.
It's a little bit of a risk, but I'm putting all of my eggs in.
So this is your one swap.
Yep. I trust everything else in my list that much. The potential of my list is big enough to where I can safely do this. All right. I will be taking out of my list my number 1 pick, Avatar: Fire and Ash.
Oh shit.
Ben, you have swayed me. You make a good point. And that season 1 and 2.
I'm gonna add mine in. I'm gonna add it in.
Go for it, buddy, because honestly, anything away from your list is a win for both of us too. So and the movie that I will be putting in doesn't come out until December 25th, 2025. So there is a way maybe it does get pushed into next year. And if that happens, then it's all part of the fun of this game, right? And that movie is Marty Supreme.
Marty Supreme.
What the Marty Supreme. Marty Mauser, a young man with a dream no one respects, goes to hell and back in pursuit of greatness. Directed by Josh Safdie, starring Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
After what just happened with the Oscars, a story about a man who nobody respects his dreams in the pursuit of greatness. You're telling me that's not going to be a role of a lifetime for him? And one of the Safdie brothers is directing. So, putting all my eggs in one basket.
Dang. Okay. I don't even think I've seen anything about this movie. So that's
there are set photos. I thought A24 was distributing it as well.
That's the last I knew was A24.
Because I saw earlier this week that somebody said A24 is about to market the shit out of this movie after what happened to him during the Oscars or with the Oscars. So I said, that's all you needed to tell me. And I got to get my boy Timmy in there. So, I'll lock that in.
Jeez.
That's my Michael. That's my Michael.
One drop of the year. Unless Marty Supreme gets pushed out to a later date, then he is allowed to swap for something else, of course. And then I guess I haven't really explained it for those who maybe are just joining us and have never seen or heard of us before ever. But this list that we are talking about right now is our fantasy draft list for movies and TV projects for the year of 2025 in terms of both anticipation and as well as projects that we think are going to be doing well this year. And we're tallying up points based on the Rotten Tomatoes scores, both the audience score and the critic score. And we are, by the end of the year, we're not going to completely tally up all the points until the end of December because lots of different reviews are added throughout the year and scores can change, percentages can change. So we will not crown the winner until the end of December. But so far, your boy's in the lead. So
yeah,
I can't really be upset,
Yeah, that 100% for Invincible is
beautiful.
That's giving you a lot.
Yep, them 6 points felt so good, man. Felt so damn good. But who knows? Maybe episode 8 is so trash, and then like it can plummet or something. I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
If some critics held off on their reviews because they didn't get to see the show earlier or whatever. But anyway,
All right.
with all of that
Beautiful
being
list
said,
update.
there's our little update on our list. Now it's time to talk about the meat and potatoes of the episode. I'm trying to decide what I want to jump into first.
Can I give some brief thoughts on a couple new releases I saw?
Oh yes, absolutely, Benjamin. Sorry, I completely forgot that you got to see Novocaine and you've been rubbing it in my face. Thanks.
So
Let's do some more.
I had plans to go see The Monkey this past weekend, so I saw that, and then I also had a mystery movie screening on Monday that turned out to be Novocaine. I thought it was going to be Mickey 17, but I'm not disappointed because What'd you say?
I was just saying that would have been dope if you could have seen it and then reported back to us after the list update and whatnot.
Yeah. I already had a ticket to see Novocaine on Saturday, so I'm just going to see Mickey 17 on Saturday. Like, I'm just flipping them. It's totally fine. So the monkey was interesting. It definitely, like, I know, Charlie, you brought up long legs, just because that's what Oz Perkins did recently last year. Completely 180, totally different direction. It
Really?
fully embraces like a dark humor, satirical tone. That I think, like, if you can embrace it, it works like really well. Like they play with death like it's a humorous, funny thing. It's not meant to be taken seriously at all. And they really commit to that tone for the entire movie, even up to the very end. Like, it's meant to make you laugh, even though like the things you're watching are like terrible.
Jesus, okay.
And I think it's a really enjoyable movie. The concept is very simple, but it's like it's wild in certain aspects. Like the kills are some of the craziest kills that I've seen in recent years. They found really like unique ways to show details that you probably haven't thought about, and people just die in ways that some of them are like a little actually just like suspension of disbelief. You have to embrace it because it fits the satire of the movie type of thing, which is fine. But I feel like it relies on that gimmick too much. Like, that is the gimmick, is you're just watching that kind of play out over and over again. And so they put the relationships on the back burner because they do try and set up like a father-son relationship and then a family dynamic relationship. And they had the elements there because like the whole point of the movie is that there's this monkey that basically like resides in this family and is almost like a curse upon the family that's causing all of this death and craziness to happen. And so there's lots of like built up trauma and a broken family relationship. There are those things, but it really just doesn't play into it, and instead just focuses on that gimmick of like, let's show you all these crazy ways that people die and try and make it like almost just funny and enjoyable. Which
Was
like,
that sorry to interrupt you. Was that like the same kind of, wasn't that a concept in Long Legs as well? Like the dolls that were delivered to families were cursed?
I mean, I don't think it didn't feel too similar, because in this case, like in Long Legs, it was a doll that like I forget the killer's name, but he was making them and then, allowing a demon to possess it and then transfer that to the people's homes.
Mhm.
In this case, there's literally just like no explanation. There is this monkey that cannot be destroyed. You can't get rid of it. It will always come back to haunt you, and somehow has the ability to just like make essentially like Final Destination scenarios of people dying, where it's just like random things string together and then they die in a really crazy way. And it looks like a freak accident type of thing.
Okay.
So it didn't feel similar in that regard. And the movie definitely played more into the satirical aspect than the, demon possession causing all this havoc type of thing. So I would give props for the movie like fully committing to that, even how the final shot of the movie sums it up very well. It's like they know what they're doing and they committed to it. Good for them. But at some point it just relies on the gimmick too much. So I gave it a 6 out of 10. I enjoyed my time. It was a lot of fun, but definitely nothing to write home about. And then Novocaine. I still don't really know where anybody's at on Novocaine. I don't know what the averages are or the scores or anything because it's still pretty early. First 30 minutes of the movie, phenomenal. They're introducing us to the concept with our main character, played by Jack Quaid. It's a similar kind of shtick that he's played before, but I think he gives it enough of a unique personality where I actually really liked him in the role. And they did a great job in the first 30 minutes of tying the concept into a specific relationship that he has with another character, where they're actually utilizing it in a way that's like emotionally grounded, and you start to really care about the characters and that dynamic between the two of them. And then weirdly enough, after that point, when it starts to get into more of like the action of the movie and things start to ramp up with the story, that's where it started to lose me a little bit, because they set up the concept in a really great way and emotionally grounded it. And then it feels like it just turned into more of like a standard B action movie, like just a run of the mill, typical action movie that plays out in a way that a lot of action movies do. And even with the main concept, and I won't get into specifics on that, but like there's a few scenes where they play into it and it's really cool. And it works really well, and it adds to the humor of a scene or just makes it an interesting dynamic. I was worried it was going to be like too Deadpool-esque. It wasn't that at all, and I was very happy about that. But for the most part, though, the concept of the movie doesn't really play a super significant role in the movie, other than in like the beginning when they're like introducing it and setting up this relationship. After that point, it plays out very much like a standard action movie, other than like a couple of quirks because of that concept.
Like little jokes and stuff.
Yeah, it really just felt like I was really digging it at the start. And then as it continued, it's kind of like they just didn't capitalize on it, which was very unfortunate. Because they did set up this really good dynamic. And I've always said that when you can take the concept of a movie and tie that into the deeper emotions of the movie, that's like really effective. So in this case, he's somebody who can't feel pain. So if you can find a way to take that concept and tie that into deeper emotions, which they start to set up, it can work really well. But then they just kind of settle for just like a generic action movie for the rest of it, which was still enjoyable, still some fun moments, but just feels like a lot of wasted potential. Funny enough, just more of a specific weird example, but while I was watching it, I started to think a better comparison compared to something like Deadpool is something like Upgrade, which Aiden, you haven't seen. But in the sense that like an Upgrade, he's not in control of himself. So when things are happening like in an action scene, he's kind of like very reactionary to it because he's not in control of that.
Yeah.
And so there was like a specific scene where I was just like, this feels a little bit like Upgrade because like things happen to him and he's just kind of reacting and going with the motion because of the whole he can't feel pain type of thing. And it's interesting. literally as soon as I thought that, within like 5 minutes, the cop from Upgrade plays a cop in Novocaine, and she
What?
showed up like 5 minutes later. I'm like, there's no way.
Wow.
So
I wonder if they drew inspiration from that a little bit, and so they were like, why don't we throw this cool little tease in there?
I don't know.
Hey boy, you haven't even seen the movie. Don't even speak. Quit speaking on it, bro. Quit speaking on
Hey
it.
man. Hey man. Chill
Yeah,
out.
but it does play out in some.
I love it up here.
It does play out in some similar ways. So, I definitely liked it better than the monkey, but I still went with a 6 out of 10. Very strong start, and then just kind of unfortunate that they couldn't capitalize on that, because it was right there is the thing. It was right there, and it feels like they just kind of settled and went for a very generic action movie. But I still enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I watched it, but definitely it had more potential.
I'm excited to see it, but I don't get to see it until next freaking week. So, isn't that cool for you, buddy?
I will be curious to hear your thoughts on it.
Mickey 17 tomorrow, though. I'm excited. I'm excited to see where Aiden's audience score lands, because if it's much higher than Ben's, Ben's gonna be worrying a little bit. If it hits 90, if it hits 90%, Ben,
I'm not worried.
You're in last place for now, buddy.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not worried. I think Mickey 17 is the type of movie to be more in like the 70s, because it's, in my opinion, it's one of those like conceptually very out there movies, and so some people I think will be turned away by it. I think it's more of a divisive film for an audience in general.
That's
We'll
a
see.
take. That's certainly
We'll
a
see.
take. Just to call back to the list one more time, I do want to mention that the next project, we'll be covering Mickey 17 in the next episode of the podcast for sure. But the next project that we will officially revisit the list on is going to be The Last of Us Season 2 in April. So,
Andor is also in April.
And Andor in April as well. So,
nice.
Which is Ben's fifth and final pick.
That's
but,
that's a
pick.
heater. That's a heater.
What was the what? I mean, I know I just said I don't want to call back to the list too much, but what was Andor season 1?
I think it was like 89 and 93 or something like that. Let me see if I'm spot on.
96, 87.
Wowzers.
Something like that.
Okay, buddy. All right.
96, 87. So that'd be 5 points.
Yeah.
Not bad.
So to get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, I think I want to dive into last week's episode of Severance first, because I think that we'll have the least amount to say on that, because we didn't get to talk about it last week. I want to hear from myself first. Holy shit, man. What?
Of course.
A fantastic fucking episode, brother. I don't know her name. Aiden might, but the directorial debut of the woman from this episode, absolutely fantastic. The cinematographer for the show so far, dude. I mean, oh, come on, dude. The editing alone, and editing is going to come back as a topic of discussion from me in later stuff in this episode that we're going to talk about, other projects. But the editing alone in this, which I know they have an editor for the episode and whatnot, but I'm sure she was sitting there watching as they were doing it. But oh my goodness, man. And beyond that, the performance from, I also don't know her name, but the woman who plays Gemma, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And of course, the little bit that we get of I'm forgetting his name. I don't know anybody's name today. But the guy who plays Mark,
Adam
Scott,
buddy.
I'm forgetting names today, but the way that the little bit we get of him, also absolutely fantastic. Dude, I got full body chills and teared up a little bit at the very end when Devin asks him, "Where'd you go?" And he's just like reacting to thinking about his wife Gemma, and like also the thing is, And I don't know if we'll get an answer to this. Aiden knows because Aiden's already watched the newest episode of Severance. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I don't even know if we're gonna get an answer to this. But like, what if that was like after Mark is fully integrated and like that was any Mark like reacting to the feelings and emotions and everything that Audi Mark has felt about his wife throughout all these. Dude, he just plays it so fucking well, man, so fucking well. And I told this to Aiden last week a little bit, but I love the duality of the shot of like when he's walking up to the door with the cops outside about to tell him that his wife died in a car crash, and he's like slowly backing up because he doesn't even like he has an idea and he doesn't even want to face that reality, and she's backing up at the same time. Not actually at the same time, but just where we're watching her now at the under Lumen, under the severed floor, backing up, falling down in the elevator in tears, thinking about Mark. Oh my God, man. Also the revelation of there can be multiple severed personalities in one person. In Gemma's case, there's one for every single room that she's in. And we know that because when she walks into the dentist one, she says, I was just here. And then the Christmas one, it's always Christmas. So it's like, oh man, there's so many like little things that about this show that like they can bounce off of different episodes that maybe you wanted to see more of, you wanted to see a continuation of, but they give you something else and answers to something else. And to the point where like, obviously I'm still interested in the thing that I wanted to see before, but them giving me this was so satisfactory that like, I don't even pay much more thought to the thing I originally wanted to see more of and get answers to. For example, stuff like we talked about last week with, oh my God, I'm forgetting their character. With who got fired?
Irving,
thank you.
Oh my God, brother.
Dude, listen, I've been partying all day, okay? I don't pay much mind to this stuff. Irving. So the stuff with wait, what did you just do? Get on the bottom. Get on the bottom. Get on the.
You hit the bottom of something today.
Yeah, hit the bottom of a bottle.
That's what he said. That's what he said. But to like, for example, the stuff with Irving and Bert, like I was super interested in that, and I want to find out more about that. We didn't get a single didn't go back to that at all this episode, but I'm totally okay with that because maybe it was because like this gave us more answers to stuff that have been long running questions throughout the entirety of the show so far, pretty much. Maybe that's why, but I don't know. Even beyond that, it was just a spectacle in almost every sense, I feel like. And it was a more slow paced, character focused episode at that, so hats off to them. It's insane.
I'm going next. I think Aiden said this, but one of the most beautiful episodes of television I think I've ever seen. Even just after the fact with them coming out and saying like, oh, by the way, this shot was done with no CGI. And I'm like, that's just art and knowing the craft to be able to have the skills to pull off some of those sequences. And most of it was unnecessary. Like some of it, it really aided the storytelling, the way we were transitioning between doorways and how they merged some of, what's happening on the severed floor versus what's happening in real life. Some of it was for storytelling. Other parts of it, they're just flexing. They're just like, we're going to make this look really cool. We're going to have these cool dynamic shots flowing through things just because. And I think that like, that's really cool when you can not only like utilize it well, but then also just show your skills a little bit. I think that's great. Man, this show, I've said this before, but it really knows how to give you more answers so that you continue to stay as invested as you have been, while also just giving you way more questions and confusing things even more. We had a whole episode on Gemma and learned a lot about her on the severed floor. But now we're wondering, why is the macro data refinement, why is that, tying into her somehow? Why is she willingly her outie? Why is she down there? Why was it covered up with a car crash? Like, there's still huge questions that we got. And yet for like the whole 50-minute episode or whatever, we also learned so much. And I feel like they strike that balance so incredibly well that it's almost like, I hope however many seasons deep they go with this, like let's say they go 5 seasons. By the end, I'm sure it's going to be an amazing, complete picture, full understanding of everything that's happened in the show. But I almost don't want to get to that point because I just want to keep that intrigue of like, let's just keep going deeper with the lore, asking more questions, because that is what is such a big draw. And, obviously I want all of that to come together. I want more solid answers on certain things. And I'm sure by the end of the season, we will have a solid answer on specifically how the macro data refinement, how that ties in to her specifically and whatnot. I feel like that's been a big point of this season, is the testing floor and Gemma. That's been like the big thing. So I think we're going to get that answer. But I continue to be really impressed how this show can jump around but still be so consistently amazing. They really know what they're doing, and it's incredible. I don't even know how many episodes we have left in this season. We have 2 left. Oh my gosh.
2 after today's.
Oh, okay. Okay. But I know that whatever happens, I am not going to be excited for a 2 or 3 year wait for season 3. Like, I just know that we're not going to be left in a very satisfying end to this season. So I love it, but man, that wait is going to suck. And I know some people already went through that once, but that wait is going to suck.
We didn't.
Yeah, now you're gonna
Sorry,
be
that
one of
was
us. Now you're gonna
that
be
was
one of us. Don't why
specifically for
are you getting so
Charlie.
excited, buddy? Why are you getting so excited? Because as Ben's saying, you're about to sit there right there with me.
Ben. So back to what we were talking about.
And the difference is, I want to say the difference is I've already been through it. I've already been, I can deal. You two are gonna be like, I want Severance. Oh my God. I'll be cool chilling, bro. I'll be cool chilling. You can bet that. You know what? I don't even want to hear from Aiden, bro. I don't even want to hear from Aiden in the last week's episode. Get him out, bro. Get him out, dog. Holy cow. I love 2-person podcasts anyway, dog. That shit's better, man.
Anyways, hey, don't start talking shit on me. I can spoil the entire episode for you right now, buddy. I can spoil the entire shit for you right now.
He wants me to kiss his ass now,
ruin your complete experience.
You'll ruin it for Ben too, man. And Ben's been pretty nice to you, dog. Ben's been pretty
I'll
nice
text
to you,
it.
man.
I'll text it to you. Yeah.
Oh, let me just block your number real quick.
Just wait till you get a DM from Aiden D Reacts. That's bro's Lumen name, Aiden D.
Yeah, Aiden D. That's my it's my severed personality. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit last week. One of the best directorial debuts in history is what people have been calling it. I mean, out of all the directorial debuts that come to mind, that would be one of them that I put up there 1,000%. It was a phenomenal episode. And we might have talked about it on the podcast, but the way that this show can introduce concepts outside of just being severed at work, like they can introduce, well, what happens when Dylan's Audie's wife comes and visits him at work and starts to fall for the innie version of himself, and everything with the love square going on between Mark S. and Helly, Mark S. and Helena and Mark, like the whole dynamic between all these characters and all the things that they can explore. And this was just this was another case of that, you know, Gemma being sent down to the testing floor and sent to all these different rooms, and how she grapples with that, us finding out that it is Gemma down there and she does remember Mark and she does miss and want to see Mark. Lots of really good stuff, man. I thought it was a phenomenal episode. Again, visually, one of the best hours of television I've ever seen. Great stuff all around. To get into the theories of it all, I have seen people talk about that maybe Lumen is trying to introduce a severance state that they can market as you will never have to experience dying in a plane crash, going to the dentist, writing all these Christmas letters, all these Christmas thank you letters, all of these scenarios that if you're severed, you will never have to experience these events that can be looked at as tragic, such as grieving your wife, dying in a car accident. And they can kind of introduce severance as this thing that keeps you in the blind from anything bad going on in your life, such as just working a 9 to 5. And so I really like that theory. I like what they're playing around with when it comes to that. That's always one of the best things about this show is, you know, getting to the end of the episode and being like, what does this mean for next week? And so, yeah, today's episode, again, just it's all of phenomenal quality. And that's all I'll say. They give you just enough to get some answers, but then you have 1,000 more questions. And so I think especially today's episode, I can confidently say that it's the same thing. I mean, you get those answers that are awesome. You get those reveals and stuff, but then you're just left with more questions. You're left with that long 7-day wait. And yeah, tell me everything.
Yeah, buddy. Okay, we get it. You saw the episode. You have it. Holy cow. But those are our thoughts on last week's episode of Severance, and we will talk about next week's episode, or this week's episode, tonight's episode, next week. Next, I want to jump into the lovely, the fantastic, the amazing Invincible War.
Yes, sir.
Episode 7, season 3, episode 7. Oh my God!
I'm starting this one off, baby.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. All right. Reaction Poppy over here.
The Invincible War, the Invincible War episode of season 3. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I do have some issues with the episode.
Damn, starting off with cons.
I think
sounded like me.
I do think and we'll talk about it, but overall I still love the episode. I still think it's great shit. I still think it's awesome, Invincible wonderfulness. I do think the Powerplex episode, in my opinion, still stands as the best episode of the season so far. But this one, I couldn't complain too much. It delivered everywhere that it needed to. My issues kind of come with the potential of some things, and I talked to Brandon about this a little bit because he was a lot lower on it than I was, but some of the things pointed out were like just basic character interactions, the way the marks come to Earth, and they don't ever, and we get it, it's for the most part one-to-one comic adaptation, but it would have been cool to try and see some marks pass as like a good mark, to see some more interactions, even just to see the Guardians and the superheroes that we know a lot more than superhero teams that we don't. And these other superheroes that are fighting these variants that we spend a lot of time with, such as, like the Rex of it all. And just to, avoid getting into spoilers until later, we catch the end of his fight scene and that's about it. We don't get any of those build-up moments because we're cutting away so much. Same with Oliver. I don't know. I feel like those moments, that the way that they're cut, the way that they're put together to kind of interject what the other marks are doing or what our mark is dealing with, kind of ruins the tension of these Marks invading planet Earth and taking out all of these superhero teams and just being absolute menaces. And it's been a running joke all season of like, oh, Mark's still holding back. Mark's still holding back because the power scaling of the show is questionable at points. And this episode, it kind of felt like all the Marks probably have that instilled in them throughout the universe, is that they just, for some reason, always hold back. I mean, there are moments where they do show their brutal side, but I'm just talking about the potential that we could have had with all of these variants coming here and wreaking havoc. It all moved a little bit too fast for me, to where whenever Angstrom, I guess we're getting into spoilers, whatever. I mean, if you haven't watched the episode, click to somewhere else. I don't know, whatever. To where by the time we have the 6 Mark variants that have survived, at that point in time, I was like, oh shit, okay, they trimmed it down. It's not 18 anymore. They trimmed it down because we're about to get some cool shit with these 7 variants, and it's about to be insane. Might even bleed into next episode. And then they all get sent to a void. And then Angstrom and Mark fight, and then Mark doesn't even get the closure of that. Angstrom gets taken away, and that's it. That's the whole Invincible War. So there's moments like that where I was like, I felt like there was so much more you could have done with this. You could have shown like a Sinister Mark and our Mark actually going at it, and them two actually fighting. And I don't know. I think there was a lot of stuff you could have played around with. The show is in its own way by wanting to have that one-to-one adaptation, and not take those liberties to make to maybe stretch this out over 2 episodes, and kind of open the door for other cool things that you're only doing in your show. And then you can go with the I don't know. I just think that they were really in their own way when it came to adapting the Invincible War into live action. And I say that because I haven't read the comments, but I've seen a lot of people say, halt yourself on the Invincible War. It was literally just an issue, and that was it. Mm-hmm. And it's like the way it was built up this season and the way it was built up last episode, it shouldn't have felt like, oh yeah, I see what they mean. Like I feel like this could have been their moment to kind of expand a little bit, take those creative liberties and kind of play around with at least character interactions, or play around with the tension a lot more than they did. And again, just to say what Brandon had told me, just because I think this is a good point. Whenever Oliver goes to fight one of the Mark variants, and Mark doesn't want to leave Eve's side to go help Oliver fight, how sick would it have been to see Oliver on the brink of death, to like kind of ensue, hey, Oliver might die right here, and because Invincible isn't leaving Eve's side to come help him. Like that tension there would have been insane, except we cut away whenever he starts the fight, and then we cut back later when the fight's over. So I don't know. There's just, oh my God, what is that noise?
Ben's throwing a slinky around or something.
Oh, bro, I must be like getting to that hour of the night where I'm not even thinking. I literally just started mindlessly playing with it and not even considering it's making noise.
Oh my God.
Slinky ass.
Anyways, just moments like that. But overall, I thought it was awesome. Charlie, I know you know where I'm going with this. That Billie Eilish needle drop. It's been talked about this entire season. The way that this show fucking uses their music, and the way that they enhance all of those scenes with music. Another fucking case in the book. It was so good, man. As soon as it explodes and you just hear her humming, God damn, it's some good shit, man. It's fucking awesome. One of the sickest ways I've ever seen anybody go out. One of the best parts of the entire episode. As a whole, I'm still so madly in love with this episode. 8.5 out of 10 for me. The way they ended off is beautiful too. I love a lot of shit in here. It's Invincible. It's gonna be fucking good, even its weakest episode. I had a little bit of issues with it, with how fast things went with some creative liberties that weren't taken, but it is nothing that will sway me to ever talk shit about this show, because they have some good shit going on. And they obviously know what they're doing. They can listen to criticism and come back and give us a season like season 3, I cannot complain. I thought it was great. It was phenomenal.
I want to hear from Ben first before I go.
I think I kind of gave this. I'm starting with a negative as well. I kind of gave this critique last week that I really loved what they did with Powerplex, and that he was already a more compelling villain to me than it's Armstrong Levy, right? Angstrom Levy. That he was already a more compelling villain, and so honestly, like for me, I get what you're saying, Aiden, about how you feel like the Invincible War should have been a much bigger thing and they could have handled it better. At least in my opinion, the payoff compared to the setup, I think is pretty comparable, because they like it was a post-credit scene that like, oh hey, we're about to do this thing, which like, yeah, they've set up this grander plan since season 2, and really have just been dropping hints of that towards the end of season 2, and then really not that much in this season so far. Obviously, there's been more things like behind the scenes that we didn't realize were connected to this grander plan of the Invincible War and whatnot. But as a whole, I didn't really feel this like huge buildup of hype for the Invincible War, having no knowledge of what that is. I see the post-credit scene and I'm like, okay, like we're finally getting back to this thing that's been, set up for a long time. And so for me, I really liked the episode in that context because I don't feel like it had a huge setup, but I still wish that they had spent more time as a whole just setting up just the villain and even the Invincible War. Like, I wish that would have been more of a through line throughout the season and not just been like suddenly last week's post-credit scene, now we're hopping into it this week. Because this feels like a really big, significant episode, but it feels pretty disconnected from the main things that have been happening for most of the season. So that
I'll say one thing real quick, and because I agree with that point 1,000%, because that's what I mean by the creative liberties of it all. Like, you have one tease of Angstrom early in the season, and then you have this one episode, and then that's it. And then we're on to Conquest, and we assume that that's how we'll end off this season, and that's it. But it doesn't seem like they have a through line villain or like one big arc that they go on like they did in season 1, which is again the problem of the one-to-one adaptation. It seems like we're just going through issues every episode where we don't have like, this is our big arc for season 3. It's just been, they more so do that with their themes, like the theme of Mark feeling guilty about the Omni-Man stuff. That is very prevalent here because it's being driven by someone like Powerplex, who's able to point that out for us. The theme of Mark not killing, like those themes in this show have that overarching through line throughout the season, but these villains and these events, I feel like they don't. We got Conquest at the end of this episode, and we're gonna get him in the finale, and that's it. Angstrom we saw teased twice, kind of like 3 episodes apart, and then we have our episode with him. That feels too much like we're just flipping through issues of Invincible, not so much like an Invincible TV show. So I agree with you there. That just, I mean, honestly, is what I was trying to convey. I just yapped too much. I couldn't get there with just the couple minutes I had. But yeah, I totally agree.
I think the main difference is that I explained it was, I think that the episode was a good payoff to what was set up, but that's because the setup was not as good as it should have been.
Yeah.
So it should have been set up better and then had a bigger payoff, would be the ultimate thing. So I really did enjoy the episode. I think, it tackled a lot, and so it did cut between a lot of things. I really didn't mind though when the cutting like in between portions of fights and whatnot. I didn't really mind that at all. Or even like it would cut to times where it's like, oh, by the way, what's his name? Shapesmith is dead, basically, is what one time we cut to that, which ended up not being true. But like, even when we cut to that, I wasn't like, oh, man, we didn't like get to see this fight or get to see his death. To me, it was an intentional choice to just be like, there's so much death and destruction happening throughout the entire world that, yeah, we're going to cut to a fight scene where there's already heroes that are dead. Like that, in my mind, that makes sense and kind of elevates even the stakes of what's happening. The fact that they're willing to like nonchalantly just cut to like, oh yeah, we're in the middle of this happening. There's already stuff that's happened here. That's how insane and crazy the situation is. Which there's still a fine line there, of course, of what they should show. And how they flow the episode and whatnot. But I didn't really notice it to an extent. But I do think in hindsight, looking back on it, there are a couple of those things where it's like they didn't really play into the significance of Oliver being out there or Mark not knowing where his mom is. They didn't really play into that much. I mean, they showed clearly like where he was emotionally and that he was going to stay with Eve. But they basically they introduced what should have been high stakes in this situation, but then it turned out to be nothing. Like we checked in with them every once in a while and it was fine. Even though like clearly the stakes are incredibly high considering cities are leveled and millions upon millions of people died. And what are you laughing at, Charlie?
Because we're talking about his mom, and I was just thinking of the scene of like where it's just a shot from outside the house, and he's like, "Mom, I'm hurt." And he's like, "Fuck, I was really
wanted to kill her again." Yeah.
Stephen Yeun, incredible voice actor, dude. Awesome job.
I don't know if you guys do like subtitles or captions or anything for your shows, but they had that for a couple of the characters, and one of the marks was literally called like "No Goggle Invincible" or something like that, because it was just the same suit, but he didn't have the goggles on. Yeah. And then there was another one that was "Goggles Invincible" or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, I think in a lot of ways they did play into the significance of just how devastating it was, just like on a grand scale. And I feel like it didn't do that as well on a personal scale. But I still think as a whole, it was a very good episode. I worry though, like I know people are very excited for Conquest. That's his name, right? At the very end.
Yeah.
I know people are like really excited for that and what comes next. But the way that I view it is kind of like how I viewed last week. We're ending the episode with a tease of a huge battle that's coming next. And we're probably going to see that huge battle next week. And then that episode's going to end with whatever the next thing is going to be. And we're just going to keep this cycle going. And it's not that that's bad, because I'm still really enjoying it. But at some point, you're just watching the same thing, but you're swapping out the people involved. Like you introduced a new character, but it's still just a big battle that supposedly has huge stakes. And we're just continuing that trend. And it's not that I hate that. I will be there every week for that. It doesn't feel like at some point I want them to have more to offer, which they did with season 1. I didn't love season 2, and I've liked a lot of the things about season 3. It's just not having that connected through line, which really the connected through line for me is what would help also connect the emotional journey that our characters are going on. Like the reason why season 1 worked so well is you do have great action, huge sequences throughout the season and whatnot, and different relationship dynamics. But since the story is so connected through those episodes, we know the journey that Mark goes on. And just watching that play out through those episodes, right?
I don't know.
because I don't know. I just want to combat that point, but continue.
I have I have a very strong thing.
Okay. So like, I just think there's a through line there that is what elevates season 1. And for me now, we have those elements. Like, we have some setup for a villain. We have Mark going on a journey and dealing with certain things. We have those elements, but it feels very scattered how we see all of those things play out. And so it doesn't feel as connected and thoroughly thought through for me. And not to say that it doesn't exist at all, but it doesn't feel as strong as it used to, at least in my opinion.
I think that through line, and it's what I just said earlier. For me, that through line for me in season 3, at least, just because it's the more recent one I've been speculating and talking about for the past couple weeks. That through line is the themes of Mark grappling with killing or not killing, which we see that with the immortal stuff. We see that with how he deals with killing Levy, and then whenever he sees him again, how he sees like, well, maybe Oliver is right. Like, maybe I should be killing these villains because look what just happened, all because of me. And then again, the themes that Powerplex introduces, where why does Invincible get to live after all of this stuff was basically caused by him? And it's Mark having to grapple with that. And we see that all season, even those episodes that people wanted to call filler, such as the Immortal time travel episode, it's still adding to Mark and his no killing issue that he's been grappling with all season. It's the same thing Oliver teaches him with when he fights the Mauler twins. And he's like, do you ever think that maybe Dad was right? And Mark's like, well, fuck, should I think Dad was right? Because look what just happened, all because of me. And then look what happens with the Invincible War. And so that through line for me, and again, like I said, it's still not as strong. So I do agree with you in parts there. It's still not as strong as season 1 having an overarching, again, mine is in terms of villains, but it's still not as strong as season 1's whole arc, because you had all of that with Omni-Man, who was bad in episode 1 and then ends it in episode 8 or whatever. The problem I have with season 2 and 3, more so 3, is that they don't do that with the villains. They rely on the themes to be the through line. They rely on this to be a whole character arc for Mark, and the villains are a secondary that are testing his motives and that are testing his morals throughout the whole season. Again, it could be stronger, and that's where my issues come in. But there is still a through line.
Yeah, to that point, like, I agree with everything that you said. And I wasn't saying that there's like no connectivity throughout the season, because Mark is obviously like, that is the big thing that we're following in his journey. For me, at least, I view through line, and more what I'm saying is like encompassing everything together. So a story, a villain, and Mark all tied together in one line. And so I agree with exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that they've done that in some areas, but then in others, they haven't done it as well. That's where I take issue.
Oh, yeah, 1,000%. And I'd agree with that, too. I think Mark as a character and everything that Mark stands for in this season has been phenomenal. That through line has been great. His morals, his motives, all the themes that they're playing around with, that's been awesome. That I can appreciate 1,000%. I think they're killing it in that area. The villain area, not so much. It kind of feels like 7, 8, and 9 are their own arc, and then everything before that is just kind of character work for Invincible that will be shown again in 7, 8, and 9, but very loosely. I don't know. That's just so both of our, I mean, we both have valid critiques. I don't think we're not combating each other at all here. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all I had to say.
I mean, obviously,
Sorry, Charlie.
loved. Obviously, it's all good. Obviously, I loved the episode. I think I would give it like a 9.5 out of 10. Actually, I didn't have nearly as many issues that you guys seem to have had with it, and even I would say mostly, and I'll get into this later because I want to talk about what I loved about it first. I'll get into combating what you guys are saying maybe a little bit later, but the animation I thought was a considerable step up from what we've been seeing before. Specifically, I shout out the fight between Mark and Angstrom. I thought that was really cool to look at compared to
Yes.
some of the other fights in the show. Obviously, it's probably not still like up to the peaks of Western animation that's out there, but I think that it was very, very well done. Considering some of the other things throughout the season. And I'm a person who I don't even think they're bad. I just think that they're fine. But I think that this was good to great. I love the conversation with Mark and I almost said Debbie, but Eve's mom. And like this speaks to the point that I'm going to make against what you guys are saying a little bit is like that conversation of her telling the one person who does not want to hear anything like this about how when Eve was a kid, she played with this one girl, and now Eve and that girl are grown up, and Eve goes off and fights in these very dangerous battles, and that girl does nothing. She doesn't do anything super dangerous, but now she's dead and my little girl's alive. That is, dude, he does not want to hear that when he has the weight of this whole fucking thing on his shoulders already because he thinks it's his fault for not actually killing Angstrom when he thought he did. The Rex shit, dude, tell me how we lose Foggy and Rex a day after each other. Like, that's fucking insane. Spoilers for Daredevil, I guess. I probably should have prefaced, but whatever. Aiden already talked about the needle drop with the Billie Eilish song. I thought was great. The little fight with the Guardians, I also thought was great. I don't know why, but I liked the little line of Immortal kind of glazing Mark a little bit, and he was like, "You're a pale imitation of Invincible." So, all right, buddy. I've never heard you compliment him like that ever. But okay.
Oh my god.
Eve getting hurt like that. I also saw somebody online say this, and I agree. I think that they're like severely nerfing Eve's character to a degree. Like her powers are almost delegated to like the like Pink Lantern type stuff. Like she just makes pink constructs and like pushes people and throws pink orbs at people versus like what we saw her do in her special. Like I get it though, animation wise, it's probably really expensive and really hard to do. It's a lot of hours of work. But I don't know. I just feel like at the end of the day, if we're gonna do that, I feel like it's a disservice to her character and her abilities and what she can actually, I don't know, put out. I guess she got slammed on the ground, but I guess I'm wondering why she's unconscious for so long. I mean, like, because in my mind, she got her ankle snapped in half, sure. But then like she got thrown onto the ground, but she even cushioned her fall as much as she could with like a little. Anyway, I thought the stuff with Oliver is good. I do agree with what you guys are saying as far as like the build up to Angstrom was not very well done. I think more Aiden was saying that than Ben. The build up to Angstrom was not very well done. Like we had the tease at the end of episode 3, and then it was pretty much nothing until episode 6, and then it pops back up again. I agree with that, but here's where I push and where I think that this just comes down to personal preference. you guys are talking about how like scattered this season seems to be, like we're bouncing around with so many different ideas and there's no main through line. I would argue that, and there's no main antagonist. I would argue that like the main antagonist and the main conflict of this season is what Aiden was talking about, is like Mark's ideals and his morality and his questioning of himself at every point in turn. And I would say there's been a very clear through line with that throughout every single episode,
Yeah.
with maybe the exception of like the dragon one at the prison. That was very much like more of a filler episode I will agree, because that I don't think that they took very much time to even focus on Mark's ideals and mental space with that. But to look at how it started from episode 1, the very end of it, his kind of breakdown with Cecil and the way Cecil goes about rehabilitating these people. And Cecil doesn't agree with Mark because he thinks that he's being childish and he's being unfair because of like how he treated his dad after what his dad did. And then to go to the next following episodes with the immortal stuff, as Aiden talked about, he doesn't want to kill immortal. He is still very much against killing people as much as possible. And he had to witness his brother kill people. And Aiden brought up that conversation that they had. Even and still the line in episode 4, and I know we're going over the whole season after like we haven't seen the final episode yet, but I will also talk about that a little bit as well. I love the line in that episode when he kills Immortal, and then the two guys are like, "Oh my God, thank you so much. Like you saved our world." And Mark's like, "Don't thank me for that. Please don't thank me for that." To continue with that, to build all the way up to the Powerplex episode, where we start to see like Mark's guilt for things that like he wasn't even directly like responsible for, because he was just trying to stop his dad, but he wasn't able to do that. And so all of these people died because of it. Right. So that ties into all of his questions with death and him killing people and whatnot as well. And if pushing all of that aside actually was better for him as a hero, if he did better because of that, to now episode 7, where we see the person he thought he killed the entire time has been alive. And because he's alive, he hurt the world worse than his dad did when his dad did his whole damn thing, because he did not kill that one guy. And he's wrestling with that the entire episode. You see, like the conversation I talked about with Eve's mom, and when he's helping with the cleanup efforts, every dead body he finds and they have to pick up, Mark has to sit with that for a second. And so to combat what Ben said a little bit about how going into the conquest thing, it kind of just seems like a repetitive, like there's a new thing that we have to fight, and it's kind of just same old, same old. I would argue that the difference going into this one is looking at what Mark did in this episode, when he had Angstrom by the throat and Oliver is telling him, fucking kill him. Look at what he did. Like, make sure he can't do this again. And Mark sits there and thinks about it. He's like, you left me no choice. He's about to kill him, but he gets away. And sure, I agree that that's a little bit stupid, because now we don't know, like that's kind of up in the air, and then that yada, yada, yada. But to continue on my point, now we see that Mark is, at least to a very specific degree, okay with killing people in a specific thing, right? So now he's going against Conquest, and at the very end of this episode, fantastic performance from Steven Yeun. He's like, look at this, is all my fault. So the one thing that I want to do right now is punch something as hard as I can. And there's a little bit of a disservice, I think, that they did to the show so far. Granted, this is just one line of dialogue that I think they can change and add in to the next episode. In the introduction to Conquest, not introduction, but when this happened, this moment happens in the comics, and Conquest comes down, says, "Stand ready for my arrival." He says that Viltrum sends me to planets I've never not assimilated a planet I've been sent to. And I feel like that's very important for like what's going to happen next. Like I don't know what happens in the fight. I want to say I'm not spoiling that for anybody. Don't worry. I have no idea. I just imagine Mark would survive, win, etc. So knowing that, and if we as the audience knew, like, oh, this is like one of, if not the most powerful Viltrumite, and Mark's gonna fucking rock his shit, like, I think that is. I think that as far as like an arc for a season, I think that's fucking impeccable. When we've seen him get his fucking ass whooped at every fucking turn and point, and nook and cranny, I'm so fucking sick of that shit. And then now we see, and we throughout this whole episode that we just watched, not the whole episode, but like there's points in the episode where like the good news is, sir, Donald talking to Cecil, none of these marks, or at least this mark, was nowhere near as powerful as our mark. And Aiden touched on that too, with these marks all holding back, which I don't think that they were. Me personally, I think that I think that they were running around killing fucking anybody they could, and we see all the buildings falling over and whatnot. I think that they were holding back in very specific scenarios when like they wanted to play with their food, as it were. Like when that one was fighting Immortal, he wanted to keep doing it. And he's like, oh, I did it too fast. And then the same one with like Rex, like he could have fucking bodied the whole team right then and there, you know, but his own hubris, Rex kills him. But anyway, I think that this whole season has the conflict, and the antagonist has been Mark and his ideals, and he's struck. And I think that they've done Aiden already said that they did a fantastic job, but I think is truly fucking out of this world fantastic. And that's probably a little bit too much glaze, but still, I think that it's crazy good, because we look at like characters like Batman and Spider-Man who also don't kill, but like that's a very hard rule. And I'm sure they've killed people here and there. But that is a very hard rule that for the most part they do not cross. Whereas now we come across someone who their idea is to not kill, like Batman and Spider-Man. Killing is wrong. But now we're seeing the other side of the coin of like, how is it maybe right? And I'm sure that there's been comics written with Batman and Spider-Man where like maybe killing is the right answer, but like we see what happens when Mark doesn't kill. Angstrom Levy comes and destroys the majority of the planet. And so now he's going to fight one of, if not the strongest Viltrumites in the Empire, and hopefully fuck him the fuck up and kill that motherfucker, because he knows if he lets this dude live, the rest of Viltrum is going to come. And I mean, I'm sure that they're inevitably going to come anyway, the 50 that we know that there are now. But yeah, I'll get off my soapbox. That's basically, I think that it comes down to personal preference at the end of the day, because I think so far as a season, with that being the main crux and the main antagonist, the main conflict, I think that that's really, 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 really good. And I don't have an issue with the fact that there hasn't been one like main villain that they've been focusing on, like an actual person. I think that every single thing has served to push that conflict and dive deeper into that conflict and make that more deep and multi-layered as it possibly could be. So very much
Aiden, littlest bro. Let me talk.
Well, I just wanted to this isn't combating. This isn't combating. I'm not gonna argue. I just wanted to say how fucking sick it would be if Mark kills Conquest and then like they splice that moment back to the Oliver conversation where he's like, "Do you ever think Dad's right?" And then he says, "Sometimes." Oh my god! After obliterating him,
breath, yeah.
I need to see that shit. Okay, continue.
I agree with everything you're saying, Charlie. I'm not really gonna like combat any of it, and none of what I said was to say that I think the season has been bad. Like I think it's been great in all of those regards as well. The only thing that I'll say is, and I think it does come down to personal preference, without having just more things connected to that emotional through line that Mark is going through, it doesn't reach the same heights that season 1 did for me. Still very good, but that's just my take. It's just not, it's not quite up there.
Yeah, fair enough, and totally fair enough. Like you said, and like I said, personal preference is what I think it ultimately comes down to.
Because I do agree. I think the journey that Mark has gone on has continued and gotten better, more compelling. The stuff that he's going through, just like that continues to gain more significance as time goes on, and the questions that he's dealing with and wrestling with. I love all of that. Like, nothing against any of that.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say this before we ended this segment. So this past weekend, we went out for one of my buddy's birthdays here. So we went to the casino, right? And then got this Airbnb. So it was 7 of us dudes there. And one of my other buddies that was there, he which I was really only friends with them 2, and then the other 4 I didn't know. But we were talking to him, and I played Feel It. I was like, bro, you got to play Feel It. And so we were talking about Invincible, and one of my buddies was like, I've never seen Invincible. And I looked at the one that has, and I was like, bro, we got to show him the first episode tonight. Like, we have to. So we got back home from the casino super late. I mean, it was like 4 a.m. And we were like, bro, we are not ending the night until you watch Invincible episode 1. So we're watching it, and dude, they are all tired. There was about 3 of them that had never seen it before. And I kid you not, the other 3 of us, one was all caught up. The other one that I was in the car with, he hadn't watched season 3 yet. And obviously I'm caught up. They were all sitting there literally like having to like sit back up and like wash their face because they were like so tired. And the episode is boring. Like the episode is like pretty boring. And so we keep telling him, bro, no, there's like a really cool moment. Just wait. It's like coming up here soon. And then they're throwing the baseball, and he's like, have a sleep. He's like, is this the cool moment? And we were like, oh yeah, this was like one of the big ones. But just finish that. You have to at least finish the episode. So he's like, all right. And so the whole time we're just talking, and we're like, man, I love Omni-Man. And then I'll just side eye, and we'll just make eye contact and wait. And so it gets to the end of the episode, and it ends. And so they were all just kind of sitting there. You could tell they're pissed. They're like, fuck, I just wasted an hour. Like, I could have been sleeping. The whole time, at least 3 of them are nodding off. And then the whole Omni-Man scene happens, and everyone's just like wide-eyed, like, holy shit, just like face melting. So then the episode ends, and they were like, holy shit, yeah, that was something. And we look to the other one, and he's like, we're like getting up ready to go to bed, and he's like, you're not gonna play the second episode? Like, keep playing. I'm wide awake now. Like, play the rest of it. And I was like, oh, dude, we can't. It's almost 5 a.m. But it was just, I had never sat someone down and watched that first episode. That somebody that had never even heard of Invincible. So to see 4 of them at least be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, they were all wide awake after that. It was so cool.
Dude, that sounds like our experience going to California when we were like, let's watch The Bear and Upgrade.
It was just like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you fell asleep during Oppenheimer, fake fan.
I saw it again. Did you watch it twice in theaters, huh? I did.
Did you bootleg it that same night?
I
definitely didn't.
I forgot about that.
With that being said, now let's get into the other glorious return. The one glorious return. That is Daredevil Born Again on Disney Plus. The 2-episode premiere. Looks like Ben is itching. I see that stupid little smile.
I just realized I hadn't been changing the background this whole time.
Hit us with it, Benjamin.
I can wait. I'm just happy. That's all. Or I can start. That's fine.
Charlie should start since we ate up all the Invincible time, and he just had to sit there quietly the whole time.
The thing is, I have a lot to say about this one as well. So I just don't know if me going first is the best idea. So
it's either Ben or Charlie.
I can go. That's fine.
Ben or Jerry.
I've said this. I've said this many times. That if they fumbled Daredevil, I don't think I could forgive them. Like, if you can go and not reference back to 3 seasons of television that were beloved by fans, and if you cannot nail down a good script and compelling characters, if you can't do that, my hope is lost. I'm very happy. I mean, those early reactions got me hyped. but I am very happy. I still definitely have a couple of small critiques with the show, which I'm sure we'll get into as we talk about it. But this truly felt like just a season 4 of the show. I think if you showed somebody the original show and then just said, "Oh yeah, there's a fourth season," they like named it something more specific and then showed them these 2 episodes, I don't think they would question like that it's been 7 years since season 3, or like I don't think any of that would pop in their head. I think they would be convinced, "Oh, this is just a continuation of those 3 seasons." Um at least up to this point. Um I'm honestly surprised that through reshoots and rewrites and whatever, that this is as strong of a start as we're getting. But I'm very glad about that. It really just it feels like we're right back in there. Charlie Cox is incredible as Matt Murdock. It feels like he's just never left. He tapped right back into there, like he's been doing it, for the last decade. He's still in touch with that, and even just how they introduce the dynamic of all of the characters. Um, Obviously, we'll talk about how they've made creative choices to kind of separate a couple of characters. So we probably won't see them a lot in the show, which so far hasn't necessarily felt like a bad thing. The fact that like we're not going to get much Foggy or Karen, at least it seems like that's the case right now, that we're not going to get much of them throughout this season. Like even in the second episode, we were very much introduced to like a whole new group of characters, and really our main returning ones are Bullseye, Kingpin, and Daredevil. But even so, like with all of the new supporting characters and whatnot, obviously we're still getting to know them. But I think what they're setting up is really good. Having Ben Urich, his niece, be a reporter, and tying that into Fisk and whatnot, they're setting up a dynamic there. The stuff with White Tiger and kind of a new vigilante in town type of thing. Just everything new that they've introduced feels like it fits in with the show, which I'm very happy about. And then just emotionally, I mean, that opening scene of season 1 or of episode 1, the opening scene, like, geez, Charlie Cox just acted like he was, oh my gosh, like to pull that off so early on and to show us that emotion was really a way to set the tone of the series. And originally, like I will say, my gut reaction was like, we're just jumping right into this, and I feel like we don't have a lot of setup for what we've just been thrown into. But then I thought about it in the context of, if you just start this right after season 3, you'd be like, dang, that's like a cold open. Like they're just throwing us right back into it, is really what it should be like. So I don't care as much about like the setup, because we had 3 seasons of setup. And so it's just a way to like just throw us back in and start us off on a crazy note. So I actually really, really like that approach. And I know we'll talk a lot more about other specifics. But I think similar to Invincible, that obviously Matt's thing that he's dealing with is the justification for killing, and is kind of going through that journey of like, will he really sit back and watch bad things happen and not intervene and stop things from happening? Is he really willing to give that up because he's questioning his morals? So I like where they're going with that. And especially starting on that high where he, fully intended on killing somebody, was definitely like a really strong way to kind of already heighten all of those questions and emotions. Um, and then the last thing I'll mention, just because I've been yapping for a little bit, the only thing that like the only little critique I really had was with some of the fight scenes in the first episode, which I do really like. I think they're clearly going for a Daredevil style, but there are certain scenes where it definitely over reliance on CGI, like some of the rooftop scenes and whatnot, which really like those things confuse me because it's like, why are we clearly watching a CGI Daredevil punch bullseye on a rooftop when you could just put in the extra effort to do this shot for real? And I understand that, they were doing a lot of long takes, so it's easier to blend things together when you're doing that. But it definitely just like, I don't know. When you compare it to the original series where we still had awesome fight scenes and stuff on rooftops and whatnot, and then you just have this that just like looks just overly done with CGI, that definitely hinders it a little bit. But that's such a minor thing, I think, as a whole for the show, because I'm so much more focused on, are they bringing these characters back into this world and starting to set up a storyline with them? And so far, that's what I've gotten. So I'm willing to overlook like the CGI in the fight scene. That doesn't matter as much to me. There wasn't even that much action in episode 2, and I don't care because it's just like the characters and it's so well done. So I'll stop yapping. I know we'll have a lot to say, but I'm very happy so far. Very happy. I know people said like this is probably the best start to any of the Marvel shows. I don't know if I would go that far. I mean, I'd still be like 9 out of 10 range so far for the show. It's early. And I wouldn't exactly know what to like pinpoint with other shows that I would contest that with. But
What about like MCU? Like of the MCU shows, even you'd say it's not.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think back.
Okay.
Like my immediate reaction is not like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever seen. MCU show wise. Now it definitely could be, like, it has that potential, but I'm just gonna say it. Like, I'm a huge Loki fan. You guys know that. I've vocalized that.
Do you think the opening to season
I'm
1,
not saying
episode
that.
1?
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying as a whole, if this continues going, yeah, this will probably be the best MCU show. But
MCU. Wow.
Damn, that's crazy, bro.
But it does, for me, it does take a lot to reach the heights that Loki reached between those 2 seasons. So like, I'm just saying it has big shoes to fill, and I don't think that I can say that it's filled them in just 2 episodes. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. I think this show's fucking great when you don't got a bitch in your ear telling you it's bad. I think this show's great when you don't got a bitch in your ear telling you it's bad.
Who said
all
that?
of Twitter. All of Twitter is
they're
really
going, they're going ham on it. They're talking about like the fight scenes, the editing, the cinematography, like they are ripping it apart.
Which I will.
I'll give them some. I'll give them some, but like to go as far as like I don't know. I've seen a whole bunch of like discourse around like the cinematography, and I'm like, how much of this is nostalgia just blinding you? Like you were so quick to rip this apart when the first trailer came out that I know that you were just sitting here waiting for the first episode to come out so that you could do exactly this.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I echo everything pretty much that Benjamin said. I don't know if we want to dance around spoilers for too long or if we want to just dive right in. I kind of want to just dive right in. Yeah. So if you have not seen the first 2 episodes of Daredevil Born Again, thank you for listening this far. Or if you want to keep listening, thank you so much for still listening. But the opening sequence, I heavily agree with the CGI stuff, with the CGI comments that you made. I would even push it further. Like that was pretty bad. That was the CGI moments in that really quite bad. I think that I will say though, I think that that is a product of the entire show having to be reworked after they already filmed 6 episodes or however much.
Yeah.
And so they kind of had to rush around and get that changed. And I imagine either for the rest of this season and even season 2, CGI stuff could look much better, hopefully. But even then, the whole fight wasn't CGI. The whole opening intro wasn't CGI or anything like that. But dude, the very beginning, and they haven't done it again since, and I don't know if they will. It would probably get annoying at a certain point, but just showcasing his abilities at the very beginning, sitting in the bar talking to Karen, how the camera widens the frame as he like widens his hearing, and then it narrows down when he narrows in on what he's listening to. Great stuff. I can't believe we never got anything like that in the Netflix show. Because that seems like something that they would do. And of course, I mean, Foggy, like, holy shit, saw it coming, and it was still a gut punch. But I would say the most gut punch thing of all was just the absolute no care, not a single fucking fuck given to just throw Bullseye off the roof. Like, it was such a, like, I don't give a fuck about you kind of throw. It wasn't even like he's so consumed with anger and everything kind of throw. It was just like you're nothing, and just threw him. Like, oh my God, that was so damn good. And I'm a firm believer. This isn't like a confirmed thing or anything, but I'm a firm believer that like Karen was so shocked because like she doesn't think that Matt would kill anybody. She thinks Matt does not kill people. So when she hears a body flap onto the ground, she probably thinks that that's Matt. And she just lost, for a second, she thinks that she lost both Matt and Foggy. And so she's so scared to turn around. But I love, obviously, the heartbeat thing. We saw parts of that in clips that they released and whatever. Really good stuff. And as Ben mentioned, with Charlie Cox and him being able to just still come back into this character and still just kill like every single aspect of it. And somebody on Twitter, I will say, said this, that they love that in the little courtroom scene with, and I think I saw Aiden's reaction to it on his TikTok, and he saw it for a second, like 10 years in as the character, and Charlie Cox is still finding ways to like add different mannerisms and different ways that Matt Murdock would react to things. And like in the courtroom when Bullseye is sentenced to life in prison, he's like, yeah, he like shakes. He's like, oh my God, like that's so fucking, I don't know, little things like that. So good. As for the Karen stuff, I think people are blowing that out of proportion. I absolutely 100% guarantee, I would even say, even though I can't guarantee, I didn't work on the show, I guarantee you she is going to be back in the show in a prominent role, if not permanent role. This is very much just like a early days for dramatics. Like they're not writing her out of the show. And also, I don't know why we're throwing like because she wasn't in episode 2 at all. I mean, I don't know I can't call out a specific episode. I'm a huge fan of the original series. I guarantee you there were at least one episode that Karen was not in whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, so like I don't know why we're making such a fuss out of that. Truthfully, I think that's just finding things to be angry about. If you ask me, Karen's absolutely going to be in the show, and some people think that Foggy's even going to be in the show. He's not actually dead, so I don't know. But an issue that I actually wanted to bring up, maybe two. And I know I'm getting ahead of myself because I haven't even really touched on episode 2 yet. But Wilson Fisk and the mayor stuff, whatever. Him being like voting in a crook, whatever, a career criminal. Sure. I can buy that. But how did he get out of prison after a season 3? We still have not touched on this. Like, I know he was in Hawkeye. I know he was in Echo. And those were questions were coming up back then as well. But that was before Daredevil was even like officially canon. Now that it is, are we going to talk about how he because he went at the end of season 3, he gets sent back to prison. He makes a deal with Matt. And we just don't know how he's out of prison now. That's the only thing that I need really to like. It's not even a super bothersome thing for me. It's just something that like I always think about, I guess, when I'm watching it. Like how did like I would need to know how we ended up here. And also like Matt seemed pretty like adamant, but even then, like with Matt's point in his life right now, I can see him just like forgetting about that. But he was very adamant of like, if you get out of prison, I will send Vanessa to prison, yada yada yada. But anyway, and then the other one, how does Bullseye know that Matt is Daredevil? Because like, how does he know? Sure, he tried to kill Karen in season 3, and he could find out that Foggy is at least co-workers and friends with Karen. But like, I mean, the moment, and absolutely brilliantly played by is it? No, it's not Wilson. Is it Wilson Bethel, or is it William Bethel?
It's Wilson Bethel.
Wilson Bethel. Wilson Bethel. Like when they're just tired on the rooftop, right before he gets thrown off, and he just gives him like a little pat on the arm. So fucking good, right? But that very much reads to me as like a, I got you, buddy. Fuck you. I got you, you know? So like, it seems like he was very much out to do this to Matt. And I just like, how did he find out that he was Daredevil? You know, like that's just, I get it's been a long time. So like they could easily just say that he just did. But then I also wonder like when he's in the courtroom and he has Matt sitting on the stand as a witness against him. Like why does crazy Bullseye just keep his mouth shut?
Was
Why
it
does Benjamin Poindexter just keep his mouth shut about that?
Was it like explicit that he knew that Matt was Daredevil?
Well, you can just imagine like why would he specifically target Foggy and Karen?
I thought he was targeting Foggy. I think he was mainly targeting Foggy because of who Foggy had hiding at his apartment. Like he was on the phone outside.
Well, sure, but he let that guy live though. He let that guy, because that guy calls Foggy. He's like, Foggy, I'm sorry. He wanted to know where you were. Let that guy live. Went to go kill Foggy. So why? You know?
Okay. So you're so you're furthering that to say he was targeting Foggy specifically.
Yeah. But I will say, to kind of argue against my own point, I would argue maybe he wasn't even trying to hurt Matt, more so trying to hurt Karen, because Karen's like one of his kills that got away, because Wilson Fisk in season 3 told him to kill Karen. Karen got away because Matt helped and yada, yada, yada. And so he's just finally getting there. And I think that adds up to me, because when he does, like, he headshots the 2 guys that run out after he shot Foggy instantly. Headshots them. He could have headshot Foggy, but wanted to, I can only assume, have Karen watch Foggy bleed out right in front of her, or watch Foggy get shot and have to suffer for a little bit. And then he takes his time walking up. Hello, Karen. So Karen knows it's him. So I think personally that he was more so after Karen than he was after hurting Matt and Daredevil. I think he doesn't know that Matt is Daredevil. Some people are already theorizing that like Fisk is lying about not being involved with the kill or whatever. But I think that's what makes the most sense to me. So I guess for just funsies' sake, I wanted to bring up the him knowing about Matt kind of thing. Quick couple of more things that I loved about it. And I do have a bigger overall point, but I'll let Aiden go first before I talk about that. And it's more about the overall public perception of the show so far. Couple more things that I loved. I love that every time he leaves the house, he takes Foggy's in memoriam little sheet, but you assume like a invitation or whatever to his funeral, a little piece of paper. He takes it with him everywhere he goes. I will say I do think that his new side characters, are a little dry in terms of like characterization. Like he has the detective guy, and that's pretty much all he's a detective guy. And then he has the other lawyer that he works with. She's a lawyer. She's funny too. Can do a couple things. But I obviously it's only 2 episodes in. I have plenty of time to flesh that kind of stuff out. I'm not really trying to push too hard on that. I love in episode 2, and I do think that this would have worked maybe like a tad bit better in episode 1. Just would have been a bit more powerful and a bit more potent, I think. When he's walking to follow one of the crooked cops, and he stops outside of the church, and he stands outside because he won't allow himself to go in. I'm just assuming, and they don't say that he's not allowing himself, but I assume he won't allow himself to go in, but he still stops to like listen to the sermon. And I just think that that's for where he's at. And I think it would have worked better in episode 1, just to show like how much he's torturing himself over the decision of trying to kill Bullseye, and letting Foggy die and not doing enough for Foggy, et cetera, et cetera. But a small thing, I don't really think it matters. I think it's still executed well in episode 2. The end of episode 2, the fight, I loved it first time I watched it. But I will say I'm in more in line with Twitter. I think Twitter officially turned me on this. The editing on that fight is absolutely insane. Like people, what they were talking about with Captain America: Brave New World, the people who saw it early, and I thought they were out of their minds. I feel like this is what, for some reason, they were seeing in that movie, is this kind of editing, because like it was wild how many cuts, and just how, like, I wouldn't even say disjointed. I was still able to follow it, but it's just like unnecessary, the amount of cuts that were in that. But anyway, the last thing I want to talk about is Fisk and his stuff with Vanessa. Very interested in it. Like I think that this bringing a new aspect to their relationship is really, really great stuff. Some people are asking like if she even really liked Fisk before. I would argue that she did. Maybe on a multiple levels, like she liked his power and actually liked him. Some people are making a joke. I don't even know if you can say this on YouTube, so I'll spell it, I guess. But some people are making the joke that he's getting CUCK'd. And because like he brings up at the end of episode 1, I know about Adam, and she's like, don't kill him. And he doesn't kill him as far as we know. So it's like, some people are making a joke about that, but I would argue it's just like he loves Vanessa and he does not want to let Vanessa go. I think he has limits to that, and I think we'll see that throughout this season. But I mean, he's going to fucking therapy, dude. Wilson Fisk is going to therapy, and that's going to tie into my overall point that I want to talk about after Aiden goes. He's going to therapy, and he says because he doesn't want to lose his wife. Bro, he loves the fuck out of Vanessa. We've seen that throughout all 3 seasons. And now we're seeing what he's willing to do to keep Vanessa when she is maybe wanting to leave. So I think this is all great stuff. But
yeah, I can't complain too much with these first 2 episodes. My complaints come from where y'all are coming from. The CGI, the CGI being kind of heavy and jarring at some points, and just weaker side characters where it feels like it's really just Matt, because Karen and Foggy aren't there right now, and with those lackluster side characters, it really just leaves him and who he's hunting down or what Fisk is up to. But I did love these first 2 episodes a lot. I do think it's a solid 8.5, 9 out of 10 for me. I personally think it's the best television debut Marvel has ever had, hands down. I think it's by far and away the best. They managed to hook me so fast in those first 15 minutes. If y'all want to see my reaction, Aiden H Talks here on YouTube. And yeah, I mean, they kept it going from there. It was just good shit after good shit. I liked the build up to the fight scene at the end of episode 2. I loved him rushing over there and just being like, look, you're my only witness. You're the only thing that will help get this guy off the loose. I need you to testify. I need you to stay safe. And he's like, no, man, I can't stand in front of cops. And he's like, it'd be worse if you didn't. So I literally just need you to do this for me and get out of here. And then he goes and dude, whenever he unlocks the door and just turns around and walks away to get into stance, it's like he already knows I'm gonna fuck these dudes up. Let's get this over with. And he just unlocks the door and sits there and smiles. It's just it's the Matt Murdock we all know and love. And I think they did a great job at recapturing that feeling. And a lot of it in part due to Charlie Cox and just how much he understands this character, but also, you know, got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, they have crafted an amazing continuation of the Daredevil show. So yeah, I am all for it. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff. I'm locked in for the next couple weeks. I couldn't be more happier. I will say a big thing I've seen is how everyone's pissed off about Foggy, and then y'all brought it up, you know, how Karen is not in contact with Matt. I brought this up earlier. We have 2 shows where the main character's name is Matt, and then another show where the main character's name is Mark. So I've called Invincible Matt so many times, and I've called oh my God, no.
We have 2.
We have
Mark,
2 Marks and 1 Matt. See, I'm already doing it. So I've already called one or the other Matt and Mark so many times. Anyways, Karen and Matt not being in contact and Foggy dying. Look, we've gotten 3 whole seasons of these 3 together. We've gotten a whole lot of good shit, and it's over there on Netflix, now on Disney Plus, I think. Let them take it in another direction. If I honestly do not want Foggy to be alive. I hope that little issue tease they're doing is just a tease. Take the risk, kill Foggy, give Matt something else to grapple with, or else it's just going to be another Daredevil episode, which is great, or another Daredevil season, which is great, but you're just going to be trying to find a way to tell a different story with the same characters. Wilson Fisk, Bullseye, and Matt Murdock. So take the risk. Yes, let Karen and Matt fight. Let them grapple with Matt not being Daredevil versus Matt maybe should be Daredevil. Kill Foggy off. I'm all for that stuff. Change it up. Tell a new iteration of this character because he is in a new universe, whether it's canon or not, whatever. You know, you understand what I mean. And try something new. Take this character in a different direction. Make him grapple with things that we've never had to see him grapple with before. And that's losing a best friend and having the other one shun him because of everything that's happened. Totally fine with me. I do not have an issue with that. And so whenever we talked about it with Hat Guy on the Escape Pod, how he thought it was a 6 out of 10 because they killed Foggy. It's like, I don't have that same sentiment. And I get that, you know, maybe that's a take that's more so with like 30% of Daredevil fans or whatever, because I don't read the comics. But regardless, that's where I stand, and that's how I view those things. So I'm fine with it. I think it's cool. I think it's a great new direction for Matt to go on. It's cool stuff to see Matt grapple with. And I'm all for it. So yeah, I can't complain too much about these first 2 episodes. It's just a return to form. It's we're right back to that good shit. And so, you know, I can't complain too much. I'm excited to see Punisher show up. Holy fuck, man. I was watching episode 2 and out of nowhere I just realized, holy shit, yeah, Punisher's supposed to show up. Fuck yeah, dude. If this is like our, like how good we're getting, and we haven't even got to like the Punisher or seeing Daredevil suit up. Like, I can just only imagine those moments hitting like crack. So if you want to see those reactions, it'll be on Aiden D Reacts on TikTok. But yeah, I think there's a lot of cool stuff that they're sprinkling into, such as the cops having a Punisher tattoo. I think in the first draft of this show, they were going to have Punisher on a path where he was killing cops because of how they were abusing his logo or his skull symbol. So to see that there might still be some hints of that in this that maybe had passed the writer's desk, that maybe kind of found their way to sneak into this new revised show that we're seeing. Very interesting stuff. And I gotta say, I'll be interested to see how it affects the Rotten Tomato stuff, because who knows how people will take that if that's, and it's something that we gotta and it's the same with The Last of Us season 2. Like,
Hey, shut up.
And but it's the same with Superman as well. Like, these are things that, I mean, we could see, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But regardless, I do love the sprinkles that they're doing with that, and I think it'll be fun to see what this version of that, what seeped in to this new version of that first draft of Daredevil that we heard about. So it'll be interesting to see.
Specifically, I just wanted to touch on the people's view of like them sidelining the main characters of Foggy and Karen. Specifically on that point, for one, we have Kingpin back, we have Vanessa back, we know we're getting Punisher back. We have Bullseye back. We got a little bit of Foggy and Karen in the first episode. So we are for sure getting a ton of returning characters, and we've already seen a lot of returning characters. But on top of that, I truly think that the new dynamics and new characters that they're setting up interesting things. Mayor Fisk, that's interesting. Now that Matt is dating a therapist who is now seeing Vanessa and Fisk, interesting dynamic. Like I mentioned before, the niece of Ben Urich being a reporter and also connected to Fisk. Like, even with the new characters that they're bringing in, the way that some of that is overlapping and connected is really interesting, I think. So I like how they have utilized old characters so far, and we're just going to continue to see that. Like when Punisher joins and whatnot. I also like the new direction that we've taken things. I do think there's plenty of characters that are, like you said, Charlie, they play their stereotype, and that's kind of it. I'm kind of fine with that because of the dynamics that we do have with like Fisk, Vanessa, the new love interest for Matt and whatnot. Those are all like so well set up and interesting, and I'm so there for those things that the other ones that they don't focus on as much, I just don't care about as much, and that's okay because they don't matter as much ultimately. So I think anybody complaining about how they've like balanced the returning characters versus the new direction that they're taking things, I think it's a bit of a silly argument, I think.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on like what Aiden was talking about, people's complaints also with the Karen and Foggy stuff, or the Karen and Matt not talking to each other stuff. A lot of people saying that that's out of character. That is completely in character. Both the two things that both of them did are completely in character. We watched Karen kind of shut down in season 3, like in a flashback, shut down after she, I guess helped is not the right word, but in lack of a better term, helped kill her brother in a car crash or whatever. She kind of shut down and kind of disassociated. She tried to go back to her family, but her family didn't want her. And so she kind of just shut everything out. And Matt is absolutely the kind of person to shut people out of his life for a bit when he's going through a turbulent time emotionally. Right. And so I think that that's entirely within their character. The main thing that I wanted to bring up, and Aiden actually brought it up before me a little bit, was Hat Guy from the Escape podcast. After I finished the show, or the first 2 episodes, I wanted to see some spoiler discussions about it, and the Escape Pod just so happened to have uploaded, since they saw it early, on their Patreon. They uploaded their spoiler discussion of the first 2 episodes. It was $3. I went and listened to it, and turns out Hat Guy's complaint, and I doubt they're ever going to see this. No hate, absolutely no hate. I say this on all of my TikTok videos too when I do it. There's Stitch people. No hate, but his complaint was, Aiden, you're muted. His complaint was,
I said, stand on business, man. What are you doing?
his complaint was the one that he was more mad about. He was a little bit mad about the Foggy stuff, but he was more mad about Kingpin going to therapy. That's what he was more mad about.
My God.
And because he says that like Kingpin would never, and apparently he's a huge fan of the first 3 seasons of Daredevil. He's a huge Daredevil fan. And he says that this Kingpin would never go to therapy. And I'm also a huge fan. And he made a grand point about like how when they went to the premiere, all the people that they went with, he doesn't think were as big of a fan as he is, because like they went with like George Carmy and Alex Coleman and everything like that. And they all said like, oh, I've only watched like 1 episode of season 3 or however many episodes, yada, yada, yada. They all kind of seemed, they also kind of seemed casual on it compared to him. And I would argue, like I've seen every season multiple times. And I could not disagree more. I don't even think it's not about him going to therapy. He doesn't need this therapy. He thinks that Vanessa needs it and needs to see this version of him in order for her to love him again and stay with him. This is all for Vanessa. This has nothing to do with him. But also, it has the added factor of, from the outside looking in, it's for his political career.
He was basically told to.
Yeah, he was told to do it. So nobody's looking at him like the therapist. There's no way the therapist is looking at him like he's weak for going to therapy. Oh, in her mind, he's doing it because it's for political reasons. And anybody else who were to find out about this, even though they're not going to, she had to sign a thing. I mean, I'm sure maybe that'll be a thing. People find out about it. There's no way that you're that upset about, I would think, a completely understandable choice for, and I said this earlier already, for how much he loves Vanessa, the things that he's done for Vanessa in the past seasons already. And you think he wants to lose her? Like, what are you talking about? You think he's going to let a little thing like therapy stop him from potentially keeping the love, his perceived love of his life? Like, come on, man. That's not, I feel like that's not legit. You're not thinking logically if that's what's making you give it a 6 out of 10 the first 2 episodes.
That's thinking like very much on a single issue and not the big picture of why it's significant.
Exactly. And I don't know. Again, no hate. Like I don't think they're ever going to see this, but I'm just saying, no, like I don't know. That's just like that seems so incredibly wild to me. And he also, I mean, and to his credit, I guess he was right to a certain degree. He said also that like he thinks that when the show comes out, he is going to be like proven right, and that most people are going to hate the show. Not hate's probably, but dislike the show, and be vehemently against a lot of the choices that they made. And so far, Twitter is lighting up, maybe for different reasons. I mean, a lot of people, like I already mentioned, are saying a lot of characters are acting out of character assassination, et cetera, but a lot of them are also just complaining about the cinematography and how it looks compared to Daredevil and the editing and yada yada yada. But I don't know. I just think that is so, I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I just think that is so. He also went so far as to say that the showrunners and the people talking about the show, talking about how it's a continuation, lied to our faces about it, and that this is a different show. This is a completely different show because of how they killed Foggy, wrote off Karen, and are having Kingpin go to therapy. And I feel like I've made, throughout my discussions about this show already on this episode, I've already made completely valid points as to how all of that makes sense for where the characters were in season 3, how we understand the characters leaving season 3. I don't know. I don't want to hang too long on that, but I feel like that was for someone who had the opportunity to see it early and to, I don't know, claim that they understand the characters so much, but then also attack them from such like a narrow-minded standpoint. It seems counterproductive to wanting to enjoy something so beautiful, to get all in my soapbox about it, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I think I think it's great stuff so far, and I think that's a misguided opinion myself, but you're entitled to it, brother. Rock on, hat guy.
I guess I just wanted to say, just because it hasn't specifically been mentioned, but I think the 2-episode premiere was really great for this show, because I think the contrast of where we start in episode 1 and everything that Matt goes through, and throwing away the mask, to contrast that with how he feels at the end of episode 2, which is just like this expression of built up rage and anger, and almost this frustration of like, part of him doesn't want to live this life and doesn't want to do this, and part of him wants to let it out, and he's dealing with that inner conflict. And so I think having that set up with like such heavy emotions at the very start, and then leaving us off in a place of like, he's just so pissed at everything and so frustrated, and yet also part of him, like, obviously he wants to be there and help people, but kind of realizing, like, Fisk has talked about how Matt basically has like a darker half. They've talked about that contrast in his character before. I think he said, like, I wonder if your other half would agree with me. And so for Matt, it's almost like he's going through, he comes to the realization that in order for him to do good and be helpful to other people, that he has to embrace those darker emotions within himself. And I just love where they leave us off. I feel like it's already like a great first 2 episodes to send us into where the season is going. Already just love it. It's great.
Yeah. I wanted to say one more thing about the fight at the end of episode 2, and I don't necessarily think this is what happened, but if it is, I think I'm gonna have a problem with it. But again, I don't think it did happen. The second guy he beat the shit out of, like, if he killed him, I'm gonna have a problem with that. I think I understand if he had killed Bullseye there after Foggy died, no problem with that. I think that is after watching him wrestle and almost kill Kingpin because of of the place he was in his life, and having to deal with him so many times. I think that is a more than reasonable place for him to get to after he's holding the person that killed his best friend. Completely understandable. But now, having been so far removed from both daredeviling and that moment in his life, if he's just up and killing any dude who's trying to beat the shit out of him, I don't think that I think that is character assassination. I would go.
I don't think it happened.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But
I saw somebody say that just because of, the way that the guy kind of snapped his neck onto the ground or whatever, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I do want to just say, if that ends up being the case, I don't think it will be. But if that ends up being, I think that's a problem. But whatever.
Yeah.
God, Aiden, you're so shut up, dude. Just shut up. Bro.
He's playing Marvel Rivals. Okay, don't
I swear.
interrupt.
Oh no,
him.
my computer would be fried if I was trying to play that right now.
But with that being
No,
said,
I agree. I love the show. Yeah, I'll be interested to see where they take these characters the next couple episodes. And like I said, when Frank shows up, because I always remember that one line: "You're one bad day away from being just like me," and we're starting to see a little bit of
we
that.
already. I feel like we saw it. Yeah, I'd say we saw it.
Yeah,
That was the one bad day, and then
yeah.
he tried to, and I imagine, and also the difference is, I want to say, if he did kill Bullseye there, I think that he would have been different then. I think he would be more okay with killing, but because he didn't actually kill him, I think it's a little different. But whatever.
Yeah, I just can't wait to see John Bernthal and him interact again. I just John Bernthal just has a way of, like, whenever he's yelling at someone and giving them shit, he's just so commanding in every single scene he's in where he's doing that. And especially when he's in the role of Frank Castle yelling at Matt Murdock, that's especially when I fucking love to see it. So yeah, I'm especially excited for that.
That TV spot I sent in the group chat where the line where he's like, "And I think you hate knowing that they're breathing the same air that you're breathing." Oh my God, dude. It's so damn good. I can't fucking
I can't wait.
But with that being said, that brings us to the end of episode 85 of the Words from the Nerds podcast. Again, I want to remind you all, if you would like to have your comment read at the beginning of every single episode, then leave one on every single episode on either YouTube, or leave us some fan mail on any podcast listening platform of your choice. We will read it aloud. Insult us, we'll read it aloud. If you're on YouTube, speaking of which, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because we are dropping episodes every single week, sometimes 2 a week like we did last week. Who knows? You never know with us, honestly. Some big stuff could happen and we could just come in and at any random point. But speaking of YouTube, hit the like button as well. That would greatly help us out. And if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other podcast listening platform, drop us a rating. We'd sincerely appreciate it. Even give us a bad one, because Aiden's dumb. That's why I gave us a bad one. But
True.
All right, buddy. So Mark dies. So yeah.
he's like, I gave you a chance, bro. But
Just
seriously,
kidding.
thank you guys so much for watching, listening. Have a great day, a great afternoon, a great night, wherever you are, whatever time you're listening or watching this. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Adios.
Peace.
Sayonara.